Okay, it's over to you, Alan.
Thanks. Well, welcome everybody to the AGM for 2025 for Regen Farmers Mutual. You may have all met me certainly on the screen before, but if in case you haven't, my name's Alan Beattie. I've known Wardy for 10 years, done some stuff with Wardy prior to this, and I've been with Rowan and Wardy since inception, really, in 2021 with RFM, and I currently chair both boards. So I'll take us through this I'll sort of make sure we're on time, on track, and on time with this AGM. You see, hopefully, you see in front of you the agenda, which will take us 30 minutes for RFM, and the same for Regen Digital for those of you that will participate there. The main events of the agenda will be item four, the CEO's report, the financial report, and members' council report. Which we'll go through, and of course there are some formalities. But before we do that, perhaps in speaking to Rowan, Wardy, and others, it was we thought it was important just if I could have 2 minutes of everyone's time just to sort of take a step back and give everybody a little bit of context as to how we see things. And the businesses have been around for just over 4 years. Um, it's been a very foundational period, and there's been a lot of very good and some hard work done, not only by Wardy and Rowan and Luke for a period, but by everybody who's in and around RFM and Regen Digital. And I see the last 4 years as very much foundational. We've started to build some credibility, a good reputation in the market, in the community, with government, both in Canberra and across, three states, and a brand, actually, which is very encouraging. We've also seen a good, healthy pipeline of grants coming through, again from federal, from Commonwealth, and from states, and long may that continue. And I can't remember the number of landscape impact programs that we've completed, but it's in it's in double figures, which is fantastic news. And when you look at sort of the products around open woodland restoration, I think we're now calling it Wardy, is that right? Um, and supply chains in terms of veracity and traceability and all these many good things that we want to do in today's world. And building out those products, and the successes of things like the verified claims, and starting to build some technology capabilities. It's been a great 4 years, but we do recognize that this has been very much some foundational work, and foundational work for growth. Well, now, what does growth look like? Well, Wardy, I think, or Rowan, is going to take us through some, you might have seen in Wardy's message, price taker to price maker, and some interesting ideas and the things that we would want to, we hope to take to market next year. And we really do believe that 2026 will be about building on that foundation and converting the pipeline of opportunities into real meaningful initiatives. And what does meaningful mean? Certainly for us that at the board and in sort of the executive level, if you will, and I'm sure for everybody in the room, what does meaningful mean? It's about making a difference to the community, to society, to the environment, and yes, generating revenue. But of course, well, not of course, but what we hope to do with that revenue generation is it will allow us to reinvest back into the business, into opportunities, into getting more hands on deck to support the growth of the business, and to support yourselves who are in the farming community, and work the land every day. But there is an under byproduct. It's about continuing to attract funds, and not only grant money, but obviously investors, third-party investors, so that we can truly start to make a meaningful difference in a way that's a bigger scale. So that's a couple of minutes as to where we see things, and I hope there's some nodding of heads, and if not, we can take that offline. But anyway, listen, thanks for the last couple of minutes, and I look forward to the next hour. And we will obviously, for anybody, I mean, this is an open forum, so anybody's got comments and questions, please do address them to myself, Rowan, and Wardy particularly, but perhaps to others. Thank you. So I'll hand back to, I think it's Wardy.
Thanks, Alan, mate. Yeah, just also, I'm not sure for whether it's you or me, but we've got the previous minutes
That
from
should,
the.
yes, that should be me. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so the minutes of the AGM last year, they should obviously be um, well read, of course, and ratified. And if anybody has made any comments or does have any comments, please we can note them. Otherwise, we'll take those as accepted. A fair reflection of the last AGM.
And then the last is I haven't received any proxy voting forms because there isn't any motions to be voting on, and so it would be weird to have them. Yeah.
Sure. Well, then we'll take that as yeah. So we'll move on to the CEO's report. Thanks, Warren.
Thanks, mate. So yeah, as Alan mentioned, we've now completed our 10th landscape impact program. We've got one that's still underway, and we have a pipeline which is very hard to assess in terms of landscape impact programs. We might have another one that we are confident of, but potentially up to 17 in a bit of a bulk deal, which would be really interesting as well. In terms of the grants, and I apologize, I wish I could get out of acronym territory, but we participated in the New Futures for Victorian Landcare grant, the Traceability in the Beef Supply Chain number 2 grant, and a grant through the Great Barrier Reef Foundation this year. We'd actually done a Traceability in the Beef Supply Chain number 1, which we completed this year as well. We have got an ongoing grant of 270,000 left to come in, and a grant that we're expecting for $980,000 in 2026. Additionally, we've got $6.5 million worth of grants out. Six of that is in the Future Drought Fund round. We've put in what ended up being three distinct opportunities that we presented, one in Victoria around climate adaptation plans and, understanding what would be required from genetic, business, and commercial resilience in a 2-degree climate change. One in New South Wales around open woodland restoration and the commercialisation and financial products that are needed to scale open woodland restoration, not just in the southern tablelands, but in the whole of that previous box gum extent. And a third one around the mutual trust mark. And I'll keep the powder dry on that because I think Rowan will talk more to that. I do want to take us back to this time last year, and with the it's easy to forget, but the biggest topic was that the coalition were in the lead and they had a vision of a nuclear future. And Labor was tipped to lose and need Teal support and Green support in order to be in power and get through their agenda. And it wasn't until the 3rd of May that there was an election. So we spent a good couple of months at the beginning of this year in a politically enforced limbo that didn't give any power to the to the idea that farmers needed to do something in a hurry because it wasn't clear that if they did something, the rules wouldn't be changed right away, which when you're entering into a 25-year project represents quite some risk. And then, later on, what we found was we had to build on some of the work that we've been, kind of famous for, which is that co-design and kind of working our way through problem sets with other stakeholders. And usually that takes the form of grants and discovery processes that then we can implement into our sort of platform, whether that's the social platform of the landscape impact programs or the digital platform of Regen Digital, or the, making environmental market financing and funding and, implementation easier. So, we have been focused at Regen Farmers Mutual with, the completion of these landscape action plans on really diluting what it is that we do. And essentially, it's helping farmers identify what land management units they've got on their farm and across their landscape. What are the things that make economic and environmental sense with respect to those land management units? And they're not an exhaustive list. You can introduce stock or exclude them, build a fence, plant a tree, take down a tree, light a match. There's a certain number of interventions. And then understanding that the intervention and land management match opens up four pools of capital to support those opportunities for farmers. And we've learned about the tools and the roles that we need in order to make it successful. And I guess our more refined understanding of environmental markets, not just carbon offsets, but insets, the emerging nature repair market, and the 8 methods that they've got planned to roll out through that. The interesting intersection between, biodiversity offsets and nature repair market and TNFD reporting. We've learnt lots about the supply chain. And, of course, just like the offsetting market, until May, when there was a clearer election result, the strategy for supply chains was to do nothing. And so they didn't. In terms of public good, what we're seeing is, a contraction and of the government grants, both at a state and federal level, but also a more competitive philanthropic uh, grant scenario, public good scenario, where more people are competing for that money. And they're looking more and more to impact metrics that might actually be just rooted in good old venture capital style metrics, but with some gloss. The local economy has actually proven to be one of the more interesting and resilient pools of capital. We're seeing pull through for procurement, particularly in southeast Queensland around the upcoming games. We're seeing more organised farmer groups like the Kiwa Wodonga landscape that out of their landscape action plan identified 3 new business opportunities, bull potty calves, biochar, and agri-tourism between farm dams and twitches. Really practical, implementable stuff. And multiple land use, this social license issue about renewables generation and transmission. We are seeing groups like Windharp Horizon, who had a landscape action plan, who have quite a large transmission organisation, saying, yep, we see the value of investing in 2025 year programs, and we might have the appetite for that whole landscape action plan. So local economy is shaped up to be a better pool of capital than maybe supply chain and environmental markets in 2025. But the pull through for environmental markets is huge. So we had this year the net zero confirmation and new targets to 2035 by this government. We've had the nature repair market, the tightening of the safeguard mechanism. And even yesterday, they worked out what to do with all the fouled up HIR credits that were overcredited and not delivered. But the thing that's relevant, particularly to open woodland restoration in this graph, are these big maroon areas. And these are essentially plantings of new, what we hope is box gum grassy woodlands that's required for us to meet our 2050 net zero target. Now, the discussion about land use shouldn't be either or. It should be how do we plant trees in a way that renovates the productive capacity, restores box gum grassy woodlands, and also earns carbon credits through planting trees. And this looks like a massive opportunity and one that we're looking to capitalise on. We have, with Open Woodland Restoration, through our existing grant with the New South Wales Government, the High Impact Partnership, actually helped 3 farmers to implement open woodland restoration on their farms. And, you know, because I'm conscious of time, I just want to quickly move through to the supply chain offsets we can deal with. It's a nice discrete thing. One of the things we wanted to test was, if you didn't use the CER method for planting trees and you asked farmers, where's the best place for trees, for shade, for shelter, for erosion control, could we, create a method that enabled a farmer to basically plant a tree and sequester a ton of carbon over those 20 years that the tree is there in a way that's going to be what's called science-based targets initiatives compliance and that's simple. And we road tested that in-setting program. And I think it's fair to say that we jumped the gun. The beef industry, which is most exposed to that, is heavily looking internally around what the MLA can do. This year, we also spent a lot of time, contemplating like what's the value proposition for our members. And it is, as it was when we started with crowdfunding and co-design through COVID, the same today. And we actually got a bit of a video that I'd like to take you through and then take you through the product of 2026 that we're going to lead with. So hopefully the audio comes through. Let's go.
We're growing something big together from the ground up. Remember that time when we invested in each other?
I've now become interested in what regen farmers can offer us. Benefit for the environment that we can do with that is just unbelievable.
Join Regen Digital, work with your landscape agronomist to understand what your path to net zero can be.
When you look at this landscape, you've got everything in here that's required for every species to be able to live in here.
Remember that time when we discovered something new? Remember that time when we made the right move in the worst of times? Remember that time when we stuck together and grew something new?
We are focused very much on regenerative farming, trying to improve the microbial activity in the soils, so for the biodiversity in the area.
With Regen Farmers Mutual, you are the client, member, and owner of a mutual made for the challenges and opportunities to come. Join us today.
So, what's our big product? Well, we've been observing in our landscapes that farmers are sometimes being asked to complete 3 different calculators coming up with 3 different numbers for their emissions. And they're being asked by their bank, their customer, and their supplier. And sometimes it's more than carbon emissions, it's animal welfare or biodiversity or other reporting requirements. And what we've found is that's sort of an asymmetry between the power of an individual farmer and their bank, and an individual farmer and where they get their inputs from. There's often only a few. Likewise with processing facilities, the customers are essentially limited. And so as an individual farmer, the negotiating power is quite small. But that we could come together through the mutual locally through these groups that we've already run, the last 10 landscape impact programs, and other groups that can form through opening the doors. And actually, we have the ability as the mutual to become a negotiator, use the AAI verified calculator, and then do the verification of the claim on behalf of our members. And that keeps the control, the locus of control with the members, so that we can then go out with that aggregation and collection of meaningful supply shed emissions data and it being verified to a level that they can include that in their TNFD or ASRS style reports. and that there aren't an unlimited number of these inputs providers, customers, banks, but that, you know, individually as farmers, the opportunity is to appoint for Regen Farmers Mutual to act as a non-exclusive agent so that we can aggregate what we can in the landscape. But if the opportunity that we come up with isn't as good as a direct opportunity provided to an individual farmer, they're at liberty to take that individual opportunity. But if, as we expect, coming together allows us better negotiating power and the ability to potentially stack buyer outcomes into a single process for the farmer, there's value to be created there. And we know that as we bring on more farmers and those carbon emissions data, it's really the thin end of the wedge. There is a lot more sustainability reporting, ESG reporting, impact reporting that's going to be required by the pools of capital. And it doesn't really matter whether you're talking about CER mandated reporting for an AccuScheme project, supply chain reporting that needs to be science-based targets initiatives compliant, or whether you're talking about the impact reporting that goes to philanthropic or government funders. All of that can be, you know, collected by the farmer and their reports provided. I'd like to move now to the financial report. The headlines are, and Jack, I wonder, yes, I'll jump through these so, Jack, that there is some time for you to provide the member council report. In terms of the financial report, the last 3 years can be seen here. We've actually, you know, had nearly $1 million of revenue this year and a small surplus, but, you know, taking into account previous year's losses, you know, that flows through to a balance sheet on screen. You might see there that there's a net negative balance. However, there's the assets of the group are mainly held within Regen Digital. And we have some things there that probably look more like liabilities when they're actually turned into income. So income received in advance will move off the liability and into the income stream. So I would now invite Jack MacArthur to have a few words with you all on behalf of the Members Council.
Thank you, Woody, and thank you, Alan, and thank you, Rowan. The things that have stood out for me as a member of the Member Council and one of the founding farmers 5 years ago is there are two things that stood out. One is the harnessing of the collective wisdom of the creativity of farmers, and the creation of these products, particularly the open woodlands restoration, have been fascinating to watch and very important for the future. There's another product that farmers in my region have been a part of, which was creating a hydrated biolink, which had the potential for water and biodiversity and reforestation credits as a part of it. And I think that this is going to be an interesting exercise going forward. Is the 16, there's actually, Alan, there's 16 landscape impact groups that have been formed, which is in itself a tremendous achievement, I think, to be able to herd that many cats in right across 3 states is very impressive. But also what comes from those is these bespoke products for the environmental products and services market that are created by farmers from the ground up, because it suits their landscapes and it suits the interventions that need to be made as understood by those land stewards. So that's impressive. The second thing is the classic farmers pivot, the adaptation that RFM has the same ethos as its members, is that they've had to adapt when there is, in quite rightly in some areas, a really low engagement in what's happening in carbon markets, because they're still confusing, and there are external pressures that are coming on that make it even more confusing and hard to predict whether it's a good business decision to start a 25-year project right now. So particularly when there's a gangster in the White House who is shaking down the planet as it burns, is it a good idea for farmers to start planting trees, and are we bidden to do it? I think that also the third aspect, and this is where the members' council comes in, is that I really enjoy these meetings because there is a collective wisdom with these fierce pragmatists and optimists. And my final words are to call for anyone who would like to join this member council. These are interesting conversations, and they're vital to how we shape this mutual. And the second and final point is that we do have a director position open on the mutual after the departure of Liz Evans. So that might be also for consideration as well.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah. Perhaps I could just reinforce that point around, my thanks to Liz Evans for the time director, and yes, there is a position open for member director, if you will, on the board. So we would very much welcome those who wish to, those who express interest in becoming a director to please let us know.
And then, Alan, I think we're basically in the home straight and with a couple of minutes left before the Regen Digital turn on.
Great. Well, I seem to have by proxy got us to the half hour. So yeah, there's a motion to approve the annual report and financial statements. As Wardy says, those are available, and you saw the highlights of that. Just to remind everybody that they are audited accounts as at the 30th of June, correct, Wardy Rowan? And that's Deloitte that performed those. And we have the management accounts as at the 30th of September as well. So we're keeping an eye on those financials. Next meeting would be, I think it's normally in November. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it'll be within sort of 12 months of today.
Yeah. So yeah, we will have the meeting in November next year. So that, I believe, draws to a close the formalities of the AGM for RFM.
I'm going to press stop and then I'll re-record the next video, so they're separate vids.